Let's build an independent work system together. Hey there, welcome back. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. This is week 5 of our Special Educators Summer Series. Be sure to hit subscribe at Positively Learning on YouTube. I'm going to be here every Wednesday during the summer with a new bite-sized, free teachers professional development. I give you one step each week, and we'll be here all summer long. New video on Wednesdays. I will also be back on Fridays with a new podcast episode right here on YouTube. All right. I need to find out. Let me know in the comments. Are you watching week by week and are you following along? And how's it going? Do you have any questions? Do you want to share your progress? Let me know in the comments. Or are you picking a date on the calendar, maybe August or September, maybe January, where you're going to binge watch the entire series, which is totally fine. Let me know how it's going in the comments. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. But I highly recommend pausing and catching up because every week I give you one step and they all build on each other. So far in previous weeks, we've been focusing in on 3 priority skills that we chose. We did an inventory sort. Last week, we talked about what makes a task actually workable for independent use. And I had a link for some free task boxes last week. Today, if you're all caught up, we're ready to move forward with the tasks framework. And we're up to letter K, which is all about keeping it organized and keeping it consistent. And we're going to be talking about using visuals. So here is the framework. We are in letter K. Next week, we are going to be moving on to S, which is showing students the system, how we're going to be teaching the independent work routine. But we're not done there. I'm still going to be coming back every Wednesday throughout summer because I have more tips for you. And we are going to build that independent work system so that it actually works. Now, I want to start off with a quick story that's going to sound familiar. It's my story and it's probably your story too. Have you ever sat in a PD and you start to feel like that little glimmer of hope? Maybe it's a bundle that you've purchased or had access to, or a packet or a new system that you're learning about. And you feel hopeful, but you also feel a little bit of doubt because you've done this before. You've tried new systems and maybe they start off really, really well. Like the first week or two, you put a system in place and your students do great. They love what you have given them. It feels very manageable. And then, of course, around weeks 4, 5, if you're lucky, week 6, things start to fall apart because the honeymoon's over. This happens to everybody. Maybe you set up a task box system and you had prepped all the materials and you did all the work ahead of time. But around that week 4 or 5, tasks weren't getting rotated anymore and students were getting bored with the same old activities. Maybe you have a finished bin and it's overflowing because you don't have time to deal with it. Maybe you set up a visual schedule the first week of school and you never went back to revisit it. At that point, you might be thinking, I can't do this. Or you might have a lot of doubt that this works for you in your classroom. And of course, I'm here to say, I think it can work. Definitely. I will be encouraging because what I think is the system just didn't run for you. The tasks you set up and you chose were fine. And all that setup work you did was not a waste of time. It was just that the system around that work fell apart because it needed you and your extra attention to keep it running. And who has time for that? You are busy. So all of those tasks you set up, that's not actually the system. The tasks live inside the system. That's what we're going to be talking about with keeping it consistent and keeping it organized. So I know systems are a buzzword right now. I'm seeing them everywhere. It's like kindergarten systems, independent work systems. Everywhere you go, you're hearing about these systems, but what does that actually mean? This is what I think of when I think of putting a system in place. This is how I would put it into practice. Imagine task boxes right here in the middle of the system. And all of those pieces are like a sequence around it. We've got the visual schedule. We have the finished spot. We have a work system that students are able to work through independently without asking you what comes next. When a system is there, your tasks can run. When the system isn't there, you, the teacher, is running the tasks, which means independent work isn't actually independent and it's exhausting. So, we're going to be talking about what the system actually needs. There are 5 components, but please do not think I'm adding 5 things to your to do list. I have one action step at the end. So, as you listen to all of this, don't think, oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things. Some of these you might already have in place. And if you don't, because you're starting brand new or you just want a fresh start, no worries. I've got you. I'm going to share where I would start if I were you. You don't need to do all of this. We're not going for perfection right now. All right, let's walk through these steps. First one is a visual schedule. A student needs to know the order of their tasks before they even get started, and not knowing the order because you just told them, but because the environment you've set up tells them. A visual schedule can be as simple as a left to right row of task boxes on a shelf or on a table, or maybe it's a first then chart or a numbered list of what they're supposed to be doing. The point is, whatever sequence your students are following, it's visual, it's visible to them. So they don't need to ask you what's happening next because the schedule's answering that question before it's even asked. You also need to have a designated finish spot. Now, I put finished bin. It doesn't have to be a bin, but done needs a physical location. It's one of the most simple components we can add, but it's also the one that's most consistently missing. When a student finishes a task or activity, where does it go? If your answer is anywhere there's space, that system doesn't have a finished bin. We need a specific labeled spot where completed work goes. It closes the task, closes that loop. It creates a physical done state that matches that clear finish that we talked about last week. The next part, your system needs to tell your students how many tasks they're doing and what happens when they're finished with all of them. Not just one task at a time, but the whole thing. So this can be very simple. Your work system might be those 3 tasks in a row, left to right. And when all 3 are finished, your student goes to another specific activity, or they check their visual schedule. Doesn't matter what it is, but it should remain consistent. A work system in your classroom, think of it as like a container, not an actual container, but like a cohesive piece that's going to hold all the individual tasks together so your student knows what to expect. Do you see how these kind of all go together? All right, the next one is the task rotation. This can feel very stressful because you might have great intentions, but you can't keep up with it. We can't keep changing out these tasks. And I agree with you. I want to say and give you permission, you do not need to change your tasks every day. You really don't. Now, every 6 weeks, yes, if a student has the same task for 6 weeks, they're probably going to disengage. But we don't need to change tasks every day. Think of a student in a favorite read aloud book, or maybe it's your child. What do they do with that book? They reach for it over and over and over again because they love it. You might have a non-reader who appears to be able to read because they've heard the story so many times. They're reading along with you with inflection. They know when to turn the page. They can follow along. They know what happens next. That's what we have with tasks too. Students can repeat tasks. It's okay. In fact, it's good for them to do. So we're not changing tasks out every day. Maybe you have set up tasks, students are doing a few of them, and then maybe you're swapping them with another student who has similar goals. That's great. I usually would do 3 tasks and I would choose 2 of them. And then if it was appropriate for that student, they would self-select the 3rd task. And I had so many students who would reach for the same one over and over again, not because they didn't want to do anything new, but because they loved it. It was familiar. It's building independence. All right, what's great about the tasks, the free tasks you got last week, the tasks in the Task Box Club, is they are familiar. The format is very consistent. They have the same clear start, clear work, clear finish. The content inside them can rotate, but the format stays the same so students know what to expect. All right, the last piece is the storage system. This is the back end that makes everything else on this page doable, makes it possible. Tasks need a home when they are not in rotation. And we're talking about labels. Maybe it's a shelf, maybe it's a bin system, maybe it's a cabinet. You need a way to be able to pull out a task quickly and put it back without losing all the pieces. So storage that's organized means that rotation can actually happen easily. Storage that's in a pile or a stack in the corner, no judgment because we know that happens. It's really hard to rotate your tasks into all these other system components when that's happening. So let me show you what this could look like. I've got some examples of visuals, and these are from the Task Box Club, but you might already have something like this in your classroom. I've got some different tokens for a token board, what students are working towards. Maybe it's a preferred reinforcer. I have a visual checklist that students can follow. Oh, you know what I forgot to put up here? I have a set of free labels. So I have that. I'll put the link in the show notes so you can grab those free labels so that every component of the system is labeled. That is what we want to give to students so they're not always dependent on you to know what happens next. Now, I do want to add one thing that is not on this system components, but it's so important to say. And it might not apply to everybody who's listening, but many classrooms might have more than one adult. Maybe it's a paraprofessional, a one-on-one, a volunteer, a student teacher, a co-teacher. One of the things I hear consistently from teachers is that independent work can fall apart when someone else is running the system or running the room. Maybe you're at a meeting or maybe you're in the room working one-on-one with a student or taking data. And this person in the room does things differently because maybe they don't know the routine or they have a different routine, or maybe you have a paraprofessional that's sitting next to a student and walking them through each task, which is the opposite of independence. Here's what I want to suggest. I don't think this is a problem with that person. Like, this is not a paraprofessional problem. I think it's a system problem. When your system has a visual schedule, a finished bin, the clear work system sequence, a storage system, you're able to rotate things because you can find everything. Everything is visible. The environment is going to be telling students what to do, but also any adults in the classroom. It's what's going to keep everybody on the exact same page. A system that only works when you're in the room isn't actually a system. It's a routine that depends on you. And I don't think we want that anymore. So this K step that we just talked about is what's going to help keep things consistent with your paraprofessional, with your students. If you have a substitute, with a student teacher who started last Monday, when the system is built right, the room can keep moving. And that is the whole point. All right, so we are 5 weeks in. We have this whole tasks framework laid out. We've done the T, we've done A, S, K. Next week, we're going to be doing showing the students the system with the last S. That's when we actually hand the system over to students, how to teach them independence and not just expect it. But I do have some homework for you before we get to next week. I want you to draw your independent work system, like a rough sketch on an actual piece of paper. I want you to think about what your independent work system looks like. And you're physically going to draw it, which is going to make you think it through. Like, where are the tasks? Where does the finished bin go? Where are you going to post a visual schedule? Where are your students? And how are they going to move through your work system? And as you do this, I want you to think about what's missing. If you don't have a finished work bin, that would be your first step. If you don't have a visual schedule, I recommend doing that one next. I don't think you should build everything at once. I think you should find what's clearly missing and then add that. And we'll just go in order. Inside the Task Box Club and the Independent Work Club, the library is organized. The tasks fit into this type of system just like this. There's consistent formats. There's clear structure. It's designed to be able to rotate without having to rebuild everything. I will put a link in the show notes. I'll put a link to the free labels. Definitely want to go grab those. I will also put a link to the Task Box Club and the Independent Work Club. You can see a lot of these different visual components that we talked about today inside the club. And let me know if you have any questions. I can't wait to see you next week. We're going to talk about showing the system to your students. Until then, take care. Be sure to hit subscribe, and I will catch you next week.